Well, hey everybody, today I am making myself a benchtop power supply. Just find an old PC power supply. Got 12 volts, 5 volts, and 3.3 volts. So yeah, we just have an old PC power supply here. So you can tell it's an older one because there's no SATA cables. It just has these old 4-pin peripheral power connectors. I think those are also called Molex connectors. Black is the 0 volts or negative. Red is the 5 volts. Yellow is the 12 volts. Orange will be the 3.3 volts. So I'm going to put a binding post on this thing. 4 of them. Got a set here. Just got off of Amazon. You can find some nicer ones out there, but I just went cheap. These looked decent enough for what I'm doing. Just wanted to go cheap. Had a free power supply. Found it in the trash. Working an apartment maintenance job, as I often did, I'd find these old towers by the dumpsters. You just look around dumpsters long enough, you find old PCs, people getting rid of them, upgrading, and I would just yank the power supplies out of them. I had a whole box at one point full of these things. So anyway, I just need some power right now, and I'm going to take all these wires, put them together, all the blacks onto a black binding post for 0 volts. Put all the reds onto a red binding post for 5 volts, yellow onto yellow, and I'll put, since I don't have an orange binding post, I'll just use blue for the 3 volts. Just an easy way to visually reference them. If I wanted to use all my reds binding posts, that would be a little more proper, I think, and just mark them on the case as 5 volts, 3 volts, and 12 volts, something like that. But the kit only came with so many colors, so I'm going to use them all up. So I'll have 0 volts, 5 volts, 12 volts, and 3.3 volts for testing my projects. Also got a box of LEDs, something I haven't used yet. I've had these forever. Got some LED bezels and an assorted box of mini LEDs. I'll use 2, one for standby power that lights up anytime this is plugged into AC, and another that lights up when the unit is actually on and supplying DC power to the connectors. So basically what's going to happen is I'm going to cut all these wires back and reattach them to the binding posts after I screw them into the case, or I will drill some holes, mount those into the case, cut these to the length I need, put all the blacks onto black, reds on reds, yellows on yellow, and oranges onto the blue binding post. There's some other wires in here to take note of. There's a green PC on wire that needs to be connected to 0 volts to power on the unit. There's a couple sense wires on this particular power supply. Looks like we got a pink going to red, that's a 5 volt sense, and a brown going into an orange, which is a 3 volt voltage sense wire. So we'll need to connect those onto the binding posts as well. There's also a purple wire, which is the LED standby power. When this is plugged into the wall, that supplies power always. So whenever this is plugged in, you'll have a little indicator letting you know that you've got power to the unit. And then there is a power on wire, which is gray, I believe. Let's take a quick look. I'll put up my little chart here that I found online, little cheat chart. Gray would be the power good, self-test okay, so that will be the LED to let me know that this thing is supplying DC power. So not too much to it, just got to cut back the wires, add some binding posts, a couple LEDs which aren't necessary. Oh yeah, also we got to add a switch to the green wire. As I said, that needs to be connected to 0 volts to turn the unit on, so I'll add a little switch. And that's it. We'll have something I can put up here and test all my LED strips. I have one last light to do, and the last power supply I used, you'll see in the video where I was doing the last LED upgrade. I was using one of these to test all the strips and make sure the polarity was correct and that they all worked before I removed the adhesive backing and permanently stuck them to the lathe fixture. That unit, however, shorted out as I was playing around with it, and it did not like that and fried the power supply, and is sitting aside for me to go through it and figure that out. But as I said, I have a few of these, and it's easier just to make another one. If you ever want more information on your power supply, you can always Google the model number. This is an ATX 300 12E revision D. And there is the power output. It's going to be a little dusty in there, so after I take it apart, I'll probably hit it with some compressed air. So 2 screws on the top, 2 screws on the bottom, and looks like it's just kind of like a C shape. These usually will have a bit of dust in them, so I'll take that out and hit that with some compressed air. Sorry about the lighting. It's my first time trying out the project camera here on the top-down view on my desk. So this is a bit of a test run for me. I could see I could use the lighting in a different position there. So anyway, a little bit of a test run with the project cam. So we'll get these zip ties off of here, make these wires a little more manageable. You can also desolder all these and just put it in a thick, like 10 gauge wire or something on each of these. Alright, everything looked good at about this length right here. All the wires for the LEDs can reach over that far. Or all the wires going to the binding posts, so I just went straight across and stepped them all, maybe about 4 or 5 inches long. Got one of these little LEDs put together, which is kind of fun. Just take out the bezel and a little plastic insert. LED goes in first, and then insert comes in behind that and holds it in place. So that, I believe, was a yellow LED. 2 to 2.2 volts. I'm not going to get into the basics of electronics, but it takes a couple resistors to bring down 5 volts to 2 volts, and that was a 121 ohm for the 2 volt. And then for a green 3 volt LED, I have a 82 ohm resistor, and I just use Ohm's law and figure that out with the math. Or what I like to do is a little bit quicker, just go online and use the LED calculator, which I will leave a link to. It's really handy, gets this done a bit quicker. Quick way to test these I like to do is just with the button cell, at least on the 3.3 volt LED. Not sure how safe it is on the 2 volt, we'll find out. So I think goes like that, yeah. There we go. Let's see, it's the yellow one. It was kind of bright, I don't know if the yellow one's going to burn up. That looks good. Alright, got it all dusted out. Got the wires trimmed back and kind of organized with a few zip ties here. So we got a bundle of the red wires for 5 volts, the yellow 12 volts, all the black wires together, the orange 3.3 volt wires, and then all the sense wires and power supply on wire LED wires all in one bundle here. So we'll take a green wire and a black wire, solder this onto a switch. Just going to use this Radio Shack on-off button switch. Got some markings made to figure out where I want to put everything. If you don't want to mark up your power supply, you can put down masking tape and mark on that, and then remove the masking tape after you drill all your holes. So I've got a hole for the switch. It's going to go right there, just making sure I got clearance. That's the best spot for the switch. Put an LED on either side, And then these 4 markings are at 1 inch. The farthest marking, I did a bunch of adjustments where I was trying to get this right where I wanted it, trying to avoid these indentations where I don't know what these are for, but got 8 holes here that I had to avoid. So I'll get some holes drilled out, put the binding posts in, the switch, 2 LEDs, and there's also that negative 12 volts, which is a low current power source, and from a hobby standpoint, I don't know what I would use that for, so I'll just keep that tucked away for now. Alright, the holes are drilled, 4 on the top for the binding posts, 2 for the LEDs, and a bigger one in the middle for the switch. Ouch. Just a zip tie. Sharp. Touch anything on the bottom, so be really careful. There we go. A little standby light. Let me know that there's power going to it, and then when I hit power, I'll have a green LED to light up too. Sweet. Probably take a little bit for that to discharge. That's why you should always be careful with capacitors. Alright, both LEDs are in. Yellow standby and the green power on. It's running. I don't know why it's flickering though. Let's might need to attach the sense wires. Maybe the flickering is telling me that the sense wires aren't sensing anything. Also, something to pay attention to is which way the hole is going through and which way you want it coming out. And since this will probably sit up most of the time like this, I'll have the wires coming out this way, so I put the holes in that direction. And I know these ring connectors are pretty oversized, but they are small enough that the nuts will grab them, and it's all I got, so just kind of work with what I got here. This 5-volt binding post gets the 5-volt sense wire. Put that in there. Get that pink sense wire on there. Got all the yellow 12 volts on that binding post. Got all the 0 volts attached. Now I just got to put on the 3 volts. That should be easy. It's just 3 wires. That's all it had. I just need to kind of shove around the wires a little bit here and make everything fit. Bit of a tight fit there. Let's get the nut on first. Alright, got everything hooked up. 5 volts. 5-volt sense, 3 volts, the 3-volt sense, 12 volts, and the 0 volts. Got both the LEDs hooked up. The switch. Get the case put back on. Alright, let's get it powered up and see if we're getting the voltages we should be. Alright, now the LED's staying on. Nice. So it looked like we just had to hook up those sense wires. Awesome. Just give them a quick check, and then I'll move on to. Then we can get some use out of this thing. So 11.7 on that one. That's 12 volt connector. So that's 5.1. And that is 3.3. So a little low on the 12 volt side. Let's try putting a load on it. Alright, just gonna try this 12 volt fan real quick. Just make sure everything's working good. Oh, sometimes I'm on the wrong side. Let's try that. There we go. Now it's reading 11.5. Try putting it on the 5 volts, see what happens. Should be able to move it at least. I have enough power to spin the fan. Yep. Alright, now get on to some projects. Got a couple things coming up, so stay tuned.